Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind.
Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside.
Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome, everyone. My guest speaker today is Myrna-Lou Goldbaum, who comes from Florida, USA. Myrna-Lou is a radio TV journalism major from Ohio University. What she is world-renowned for is that she is a Master Palmist, soulmate specialist, and an author, and has been ranked in the top 12 best palmists in the world. Myrna-Lou began reading palms at the age of 10 when her mother gave her an old edition of a book on palmistry. And currently, in her 63rd year of reading palms, she has read, logged, and documented in excess of 60,000 hands, and I'm certain at this current time, in excess of that total. The list of her achievements is impressive, and some of the events that caught my eye when I was researching her, many accomplishments are: she has lectured at schools, camps, book clubs, and non-profit groups. She conducts classes in palmistry. She presents numerous seminars at psychic fairs. She's lectured at Colorado University, Boulder, in the Fine Arts Department, conducted psychic meetings, been a guest speaker at various functions, and entertained on stage. She's interviewed on numerous radio stations and television and in various newspapers and magazines. I'm very honored to have Myrna-Lou here as my special guest on Awaken Your Mind Magic. And she's been contributing as a writer at Mystic Pop magazine, De Silva's News as a columnist on the internet, and at ILR magazine, Turkey, contributing writer to brandlady.com and Body, Mind and Spirit newsletter, Toledo, Ohio. Myrna-Lou is the author of 4 books: May I See Your Hand? Palm Reading for Fun and Profit, Soulmate Connections, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About, Relationships, Love, Romance, and Soulmates, Diary of a Palm Reader, Palm Reading Sessions from 1956 to 2003, and Cruise to the Other Side, A Metaphysical Journey. She is a member of Global Palm Reading Hand Analysis Network, Worldwide Hand Analysis, the International Metaphysical Practitioners Association. And Myrna-Lou is just this incredible woman. Myrna-Lou, it's great to have you here as my special guest on Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really sorry that you had to go through all that. That's a lot of background, but it really is all true. So,
well, I'm really not sorry because, wow, that was just a breakdown. When I researched you, there was about another 2 or 3 foolscap pages of amazing accomplishments. You are an incredible woman. Tell us your story. What caused you to awaken your mind magic?
Well, once I had that library book when I was 10, my sister was 6, and I learned on her hand. So today she's 76, and she still walks with her hands behind her back. She doesn't want me to look because I learned, and I know her once you're born with the hand, it's this big, small little hand, has lines on it. And so those lines don't change. More lines come as you have experiences. So everything that happens to you that affects your mind, that makes an impression on you, is going to show up on a hand.
Just incredible that,
So,
as you say, everything is on the pattern of your hands. Would that be something that you're born with, or do the lines change as you...
It's your it's part of you. It's your heredity. It's your gene pool from way back, and it's everybody that made you who you are today. Then a newborn baby grows, and when they're about 15 or 16, they start thinking for themselves. Then when they're about 18, and things really happen, you're in love, you're not in love, you're doing this, you're doing that, and it all shows up on the hand.
You work with the Akashic Records. Would you say that that is something that you wrote as your sacred lesson before you're born, and that everything that's mapped out on your hand is...
Well, it is a record, you're right.
So it's recorded before you're born. You make those decisions as to what you're going to possibly experience in your life. And then you come onto the earth in your little human meat suit, as I call them, as a baby, and you've got all this potential, and it's up to you as a human living a human life with this incredible spirit that is eternal and lives forever energetically. You say, and you believe through the Akashic Records, that this is what you have chosen to have, and if you choose to live it, you can have an incredible life. You can live this dream.
Well, lines start, stop, meander, change as things happen. So actually, I can look at a newborn baby that's 1 day old, because I did my grandkids, and I can see they're going to college, how old they'll be when they get married. And that's all there. Yeah. And then maybe they change it.
That's amazing. Were you able to, having predicted this, or being able to see this, not even predicting it, you know it's there. Are you able to tell your daughter or your son with your incredible gift, hey, you better start saving because this child is going to be the next Picasso or the next Einstein?
No, I just tell them, you're going to have two of them in college. And it's practically at the same time, and it's expensive. So help them out if you can. You know?
I'm intrigued, Myrna-Lou, to know if your children have chosen to have that child pre their birth.
No, that isn't how that works. Okay, what happens is a person has 5 basic lines on their hand, and one of them is reproduction. And so everybody usually has some marks there. So average person has 4 marks. Okay, well, most people don't have 4 children, but they might have had 2 miscarriages, then they have 2 beautiful babies. So maybe they did have 4. So every hand is different. But I once did a 14-year-old girl, and I said, my God, you have 6 marks on your hand. You're very fertile. And she got real quiet. And I said, and you already had one. And she said, no, that was an abortion. And my husband was standing behind me, and he goes, how did you do that? And I knew. Okay.
It's incredible when you open up your mind and when you awaken and you have these abilities, what you can pass on. Do you actually teach people?
Right. The book that I wrote called May I See Your Hand is actually a primer or almost like a workbook. And on page 25, there's a blank hand. And as I teach each line, the people have to mark their own hand, take a look at it, see what they have, and try and draw it in there. Because if you know your own hand, and of course everybody knows their own life, then you can read somebody else. So my class takes 2 hours. That's it. Then I give a little test, and if they don't pass, we have to start all over. So of the 3,060 people that I've taught, only 2 didn't get it.
And
almost people get it,
are you very strict? Obviously, I mean, you're a natural teacher. Are you very strict with those people? So you're putting people out there who really have this ability to be able to do what you can.
Okay. Some people want to learn it just for themselves, to play with at parties or gatherings. Some people want to do it for a profession, and some people just want to know about themselves. So when they take the class, I said it was just 2 hours. When it's over, I do a verbal test on everybody. So if I have 10 people sitting in front of me, I say, show me the lifeline, and they all have to hold their hand up and point it out. And if one person's going, I don't remember, that's one of the ones that we go over it again. So I'm lenient to a point, and then I just say, okay, everybody can go home now, but you 2 have to stay. And then I just start up again.
That's fantastic.
I did a class once in my home, and a lady slept through the whole class. Her head nodded, and her head went down on her chest, and that was the end of it. So when it was over and I gave the test, she didn't get 1 line right out of 5. So I said, we're going to do this again, even though I'm tired now because I've been standing for 2 hours with the big flip chart. I'm going to do it again, and you will understand it this time. She said, I'm wide awake now. So I went through 2 more hours. Then she says, would you call me a cab, dear? And I said, well, why? She said, well, I don't drive, and I was dropped off here. I need a ride home. So I took her home, because she had to stay 4 hours instead of 2. Turned out she lived in an old age home.
Oh, bless her.
That's why she fell asleep.
Oh, dear me. Well, that was very kind of you. I wonder if that became her party trick in the old age home.
She wanted to do it where she lived and read everybody. So I gave her a rubber hand that I had with all the lines on it. I gave her a little outfit to wear. I gave her a magnifier, and she was all set. So I said, for God's sakes, don't tell anybody how long they're going to live when you live in an old age home. Just tell them they had a full life and that they love to read, or they're very active in puzzles or whatever it is they like to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's a lovely story. I love it. Myrna-Lou, what was your life like growing up? And explain how, when you discovered this amazing book, how your family decided to treat you as this incredible palmist.
That isn't exactly how it happened. My mother was a nurse in a hospital, and I showed up for a ride home after school, and she couldn't leave because it was a small hospital, and the next shift never showed up. So she said, we have to stay 8 more hours. And little kids don't like that. I was in 3rd or 4th grade, and I got noisy. So she said, here, read this book. And she just grabbed it off. She didn't even look at the title. She just said, sit down here and read this. So I sat down and I started looking at the book, which I have a copy of now. And it was very hard to understand. I couldn't read the verbiage. It didn't make any sense to me. I could read words, but I didn't understand it. But every page had an illustration on it. So I memorized every one of those lines. And there was probably 50 pages of illustration. So one time in Boulder, Colorado, I was doing a fair, and a man sat down, and I read his hand, and he said, I have a book at home that sounds just like you. And I described the book, and I said, does it have a hand on the front, but it kind of dips in? He said, that's right. I said, is it brown? He said, yeah. I said, is it 6x9, not a normal size book? He goes, you know that book? I said, that's the one I learned on. But wait till you hear this. He bought it in an antique store in Maine. He lived in Colorado, and I was from Ohio, and that's where I got it.
Oh, my goodness. I wonder if it was the same book.
It might have been. It was written in 1895, and it was by a Chinese man. So when you're a kid, you don't look at authors or titles. And I had trouble finding that book. I looked for 45 years. I couldn't find it. I looked on antique stores. I looked everywhere. So I ended up writing, May I See Your Hand? And my book is validated by that book. It's really the same.
I love that story. That is amazing. Did the man let you borrow the book, or
No, he gave it to me, and I gave him mine. We traded right there.
Oh,
He
fantastic!
said, "I'll go home and get it." And I said, "Where do you live?" And he lived right near where I did. So I said, "Well, wait till the fair is over, and then we'll trade books." And that's what we did. But he gave it to me in a plastic bag, and he was holding it at the top of the bag, and all the pages were falling out. So I had to have it put together.
Wow, that's fabulous. That, in the way I think, or the way I've also trained, is it wasn't by chance. It was meant to come back to you, that book.
Well, if he hadn't have sat down, I never would have seen it. Yeah, that's true. It probably was fate.
Well, universe is incredible. And the things that happen, even a book, they can find this, they have an energy and they find themselves in the right place, in the right hands. And clearly you have it still, I should think.
Well, I can't go to a restaurant without looking at the waitress's hand. And I say, "So you have 3 children?" She says, "How do you know that?" And I said, "Well, number 4 is in the oven." And she goes, "Shh, they don't know that here at work yet."
Oh my goodness.
I can't help it. I look at hands, if I'm in the beauty shop and the person next to me is just reading a magazine, I sneak a look, not the magazine, I'm looking at her hand.
Oh, that's incredible. Now I'm going to ask you, you originally qualified at university in journalism and broadcasting.
Well, I've been reading my whole life and writing my whole life. And so when the counselor talks to you in high school before you go to college, they said, your aptitude is writing and you should write what you know about. And that's why I wrote 4 books on palmistry. So the last one is a novel, but it has a palm reader in it. And I knew what to say and how to have her portrayed in that book.
Oh, I love that.
Then they said, "And you also are pretty outgoing and articulate. Let's try you out for radio." So I did 3 radio shows in college. I worked for the school newspaper because I was writing. I worked for the city town newspaper, and I went to college, and I did 4 years in 2. So
wow.
I graduated in 2 years with all that going on.
Just listening
I don't think I don't just sit.
No, you certainly don't. And just listening to you, when you talked earlier on, when you spoke earlier on about as a child going through the book that we were speaking about, this magical 18-something Chinese book. Yeah. You remembered more than 50 images. Does that mean you have a photographic memory?
No, but that was something that appealed to me and I wanted to learn it. If it had been math, I wouldn't have liked it, or economics or history, but that was something brand new and it was like, come here. And so I sat down and I understood it.
That's fantastic as well because, well, actually I can empathize because I have dyspraxia, which is like mathematical dyslexia. I'm extremely good at the word and the written word and everything else. But you give me numbers and I sort of shiver and shake. Give me words or images and boy, I'm there, lickety split. I will remember them as well. Yeah. So you're a girl after my own heart, Myrna-Lou.
But I don't have a photographic memory. It's not that. It's just that it made an impression on me. I was at an impressionable age. And as I looked at each one, and since there are 5 basic lines, I'll just tell you what they are. So everybody has a lifeline or you wouldn't be here. Everybody has a love line, whether it's a love of work or love of another person or love of self, it doesn't matter. We all have a love line. Then there's work, and work could be you stay home and make beds and take care of kids, but that's work. And then everybody has reproduction, whether they have children or not, it shows up. And then the last thing is the bracelets, and they're over here on the wrist. Mm-hmm. So I tell people, even in radio shows, put your elbow on your stomach if you're right-handed, or left-handed if you're left-handed. You put your elbow here, you throw your hand out in front of you, crinkle it up in front of you, and you'd see the lifeline is a long, skinny line under the fingers. And that's how I can judge what gene pool you come from, not how old you're going to be.
So when you talk about a gene pool, do you mean a race or
No, means all the relatives that make you up from way back, grandparents, their parents, parents of the grandparents, just everybody that became part of your family back then is brought forward into the newborn. So your parents are made up of a combination of a lot of people, and some kids come out, they're born, they look just like the mother, or they look just like the father, or they resemble a grandparent because it's an imprint.
So when a child looks let's say a little boy is born and everybody says, oh my gosh, he is his dad's doppelganger, his clone.
Right. Yeah.
Is that because, and from rebirth or ancestral genetics from the energy pool, is that what makes them who they are, makes them come?
Right. It's the energy pool. You could call it that way instead of the gene pool. It's all the energies from all the different people that were in that family, maybe 1,000 years worth, that comes forward.
Can you, when you're looking at the person's hand, can you instinctively know what the grandparent was like?
No. Each hand is only about that person. A lot of people come to me and they want to know about their children. Say, I'm having trouble with my son, or my daughter's talking back. And I say, well, you know what? They're not on your hand, but your hand is about you. But if you wanted me to straighten a kid up, bring him over and I'll give him a talking to and they'll be straightened up.
I'll sort out his hands. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tell us about the day that your husband said to you, quit working so you can do this amazing palm reading.
Well, I was in corporate for 35 years and I was going to retire when I was 65. And now I'm 53 when I met him. And he said, would you please quit doing this part-time in the mornings after work on your lunch hours? Why don't you just do it full-time? And I said, I can't do that. So until I was 56 and we got married, I kept working and doing it part-time. The day we got married, he said, I want you to do it full-time. Well, he thought I was going to play in it just a little bit. And he made a cookie monster because I was doing 70 hours a week. You don't do 70 hours a week, even when you work for somebody else.
No.
I had 10 people a day, every day.
10 people. And how did they find you? Was it through word of mouth or?
No. Part of it was that, but I would be on radio shows, big ones, 50,000 watt station. And I live near Denver. So it went out all over and it got as far as Nebraska. People would drive all that way because they wanted a reading. So here in Florida, people drive from Miami Beach and it's 3.5 hours. They drive all the way here. I do their reading. They turn around and go all the way back. I wouldn't do that.
And now with COVID-19, do you do the readings? We're chatting to each other now on Zoom. Do you do it through Skype and Zoom and all of these amazing virtual?
No, because it's private. And if you did that, other people would be able to hear a person's stuff. I like it to be just one-on-one. So if I went on there and it was a general thing or I was teaching, that's one thing. But if somebody put their hand up and I'm reading it, it's just between me and that person.
Oh, that's great respect as well, because obviously it is extremely personal.
Well, if somebody wants to get a divorce, but the husband doesn't know it yet, and he's standing behind her, I can't say anything. And I see it on the hand. I say, I see a big break here. I can't say that. So
of course.
You have to be careful what you say. Then it isn't a true reading.
When you were working with people like this, have you or ever had the experience of seeing what a person's new husband or wife or partner is going to be like?
I can see, I can look into the future. So first I do the past. Everybody knows their own past. Then I do the present, where they are today. Then I tell them what their potential is further out. But so if somebody's contemplating getting a divorce, it's not up to me to say, get one or, get rid of the guy. I just say, so have you been to counseling? Oh, yes. I go and my husband holds a pillow in front of his face and he twirls around on the chair because he doesn't want to look the counselor in the eye. So I said, that should tell you something right there. That means that he's hiding something.
I would think so. My goodness.
Yeah. So I can't say, okay, so he's hiding something. So I say, well, then you're not communicating well. And they go, that's right. We don't talk at all. I say, well, what do you have in common? Nothing. So I said, then what did you get married for? Well, 23 years ago, I was nervous and he asked me. So I said, yes. And then they were stuck for 23 years. So I say, well, if you happen to be free and you weren't in a committed relationship and married, there's all kinds of potential. And there's 5 of them going to come after you all at one time. All you have to do is be free. So then they know what they need to do. Or I say, I think you're going to find somebody, but you'll be alone 2 years.
Wow. This is amazing. I mean, you should have a Lonely Hearts Club as well to introduce all the right people.
Well, that's why I wrote the book called May I See Your Hand, first of all, to teach it. Then I wrote the Soulmate book second because more people ask me about love and romance than anything else. They want to know what's going on. So I tell them.
That's very true, because in my coaching practice, I find that so many people come and they intrinsically very romantic and they want to be happy and they want this love and they just don't know how to deal with it. So no wonder people drive 3 hours to go and spend 2 hours or an hour with you.
Just an hour for a reading.
Yes, so it's well worth it. You don't have to go through 6 months of coaching, and that's not doing myself any favors, but I am being very open here. Go see Myrna-Lou. She's the one. She can do this for you in an hour.
Well, actually, what I do on the internet, I did a show out of Canada, which is almost as far away as where you are.
Yeah.
And that show, 40 people called me or emailed me to have a reading. And I'm offering, because of the COVID pandemic right now, I'm offering half off. So instead of 100, I'm doing 50. So I did 40 people at $50 each from one show. Yesterday, I did a show in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, just like I'm doing one today.
Yes.
But yesterday I have 3 already, and the show hasn't even been on yet. It was just on a blurb that somebody put out there.
Well, I congratulate you.
For it.
Well, clearly you are an extremely gifted person and excellent at what you do. I notice in what I read about you and learnt about you in the last couple of days that within no time after you walking out of the job that you had as a PA, that you ended up within, I think it was within a couple of days, that you were featured on a show called Quit Working by Jeff Steinman. And that was also a really good time for you, where you started to
I opened
get more
up
clients, and open up. Tell us more about that. That was an incredible show.
He was writing a book, and he contacted me, and he said, I'm writing a book about people who can quit working. Someday you get to the point where you go, I've had it with corporate. So I was right at that point anyway. And when my husband said, quit working, I said, really? I'm a grandma. I need to have my own money. I'll do my own thing. So he said, I don't care. Take a room in the house. I took a basement room that was a spare bedroom. And I made it into a palm reading room. And I went on a radio. I quit work July 31st. I went on a radio show August 1st in person in Denver. And while I was doing the show, they had a switchboard at that time where the woman poked the thing into the switchboard. When it was over, I walked out and I smelled smoke. And I said, "Oh, was there a fire here?" And the switchboard operator was doing her nails. And she said, "Somebody named Myrna-Lou was here and she blew our lines out." So many, 400 calls came in during that show, and it burned up the equipment.
Oh my!
On fire.
Oh my goodness! Well, you certainly were on fire. Wow!
So that was the birth of my really going out on my own, August 1st, 1996.
400 callers.
Well, and then when I got home, my mailbox was full, my phone, because people were calling my house. They were calling the station. For 6 months, they were still calling the station looking for me. So that's what started me.
Myrna-Lou, do you think that this is an incredible message to put out to people there who are absolutely miserable in their jobs? They don't know why on earth they're doing what they're doing other than to put bread on the table.
Right, it's a paycheck.
Yeah, and they're just absolutely miserable. And you are just such a prime example of how you can quit working. I know you have this wonderful husband who said, "Hey, go do what you got to do." I think he must be very good at marketing and sales because he realized just how good you are.
Well, he was working and I was raising his 2 kids. And he said, "How can you work, take care of the house, strip beds, do all the stuff you do, then go do your own thing on top of it? It's too much." And I said, "You're right." So he got me a woman to clean the house, which helped a lot. Then he made me quit. He told me I should quit work, which I did. And then I worked so much, I couldn't barely make a meal or do laundry. My nails got really long because I wasn't doing housework.
I love that.
Yeah.
Did you get a manicurist?
Eventually, I took time for myself to go to get my hair cut, get my nails done once in a while. Yeah.
So this is proof. When you quit working in the corporate or wherever else, and this is good information to people who are sitting here during COVID feeling very sorry for themselves because they've lost their job because their companies can't keep them. You did that. You followed your passion. You became extremely powerful. I mean, oh my goodness. I just think, I think of you blowing up that woman's, that woman's board thing and she's there doing her nails and saying, "This woman called Myrna-Lou blew up my panel here." You did that because you followed your passion and you had the courage to do it.
Well, you have to stand up for yourself, too. That's the other thing. So when I went on that show, they wanted to really make fun of me and they were going to make a big stink about it.
Yeah.
But the day before, I had my husband go down there and get me 13 sheets of paper that had a hand on each one that were people from the studio.
Yeah.
And I studied every one of them and I wrote notes on each one and I did them on the air. When I got to the host, I did him first, of course.
Yeah.
Then I did a few of the other people. Then one of the people came in and I told him a lot of things and he just had a fit. He walked out of the room. He said, "That isn't right." And he was all pompous. He's a little short guy.
Yeah.
He came back when it was over and he said, "Oh my God, you got me 100%. Well, he was going with a woman for 7 years and they never got married. And I said, "I see on your hand, there's marriage in your future." So she called him up and said, "See, I knew it." And he had to marry her. So
I think that's great.
He was mad about that.
Good for you. You made an honest man of this little short man who was going to make fun of you.
Well,
that's a great story.
They were all making fun of. They wanted to really make it like silly. So I took all those 13 sheets of paper. I threw them up in the air, and they went. And they fell down on the desk. And they said, "What'd you do that for?" And I said, "You don't know who you have here. If you want to make fun of me, I wouldn't have come. I came to do what I know how to do." And I just gave them a what for. And from then on, it was a good show.
Well, there you are. You were standing your ground as a woman and as a very gifted person. I know as a fact that there's sometimes I get branded as being what they use the word now, woo-woo. She's woo-woo. And And I sort of think, yeah, I am. I'm a total misfit. I am different. I am using what I've been born with, and I'm a creative, and you are too.
Well, you're a powerhouse of creativity. Yeah.
Thank you. And so are you. And this
I can't. I didn't even see your hand. I can read you though.
Bless you. I'll have to get that on offline at another stage where we're not putting this out to the whole world. Oh dear, that's so lovely. I love that. Myrna-Lou, getting back to this whole thing where you are not going to be made fun of. You are to be taken seriously because this is actually something that you've taught people to do and you know how to do. Can it help people who are not well or are unfit and desperately need your almost like a wake-up call from reading their palms at what they can have? In fact, dreaming the dream and living the dream.
Well, I think the hand is, to me, it's a blueprint about the person. And it's it's like a map, and you just go down and read the map. So if somebody is unfit or they're miserable or they don't feel well and they don't know why, I'm not a doctor. I can't say why, but I can see it. So I see you have a little lump in your breast. And one woman said to me, oh, it's been there 10 years. And I said, if you don't go to the doctor, you'll never find out what it is. I'll go with you if you're afraid to go, but you need to get that checked out. So she went, she had her breast removed. She had cancer. 3 years later, she died. And she's the one who illustrated my first book. Oh. She was an artist.
So
she actually heard me on that show that we were talking about that was from Denver, and she tape recorded it and brought me the tape.
Oh, fantastic. Did the people on the show not give you a recording?
No, those years they didn't do that.
This is the thing. Now, we were talking before we started recording about being baby boomers, and you were mentioning to me about this stage in your life as a human, your age, and we were talking about how you don't look this particular age. And
I have the wrinkles, I have the gray hair to show for it, but I'm actually the energy of a 38-year-old. So that's who I think I am, even though I'm 80.
Do you believe that what you think is what you are?
That's part of it. And you also have to have a forward thinking. You can't be negative. You have to be positive and go out into the world with positivity. Then you can do anything. You can conquer anything if you make up your mind.
When you speak about this and you see this in a person's hands and they come into you, let's say in a very depressed state, high anxiety, something's terrible has happened in their life, and you can see what the positive things are in that person's...
Well, what I try to do is guide them or, put them on the right path. So I say palmistry is a vehicle that's going to drive you to a new place because they're stuck. And so I do all these symbols too that are also on a hand. And one of them is called an island. And an island means you're in a cornered situation. You don't like where you live, or you don't like your job, or you wish you weren't married, or you wish you were married, whatever it is. And so I get them unstuck. I have 3 scrapbooks about 6 inches each full of thank you notes.
That's wonderful.
Because they say you put me on the right path.
Now you have people from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share with me and the listeners, how many countries have you dealt with people and uplifted lives?
I've talked to people in 93 countries. And I didn't even know there was that many countries. There's a lot more I haven't heard from. But from Israel, I probably had 25 people. From Europe, I probably had thousands over the years. Most of them are from Canada, the U.S., Mexico. And I've done famous people. I've done ministers. I've done the president of the United States, Gerald Ford. After he wasn't president anymore, he was retired, but I actually did him. I've done movie stars, directors of public works, every walk of life. I've done people from all over.
When you talk about these countries and you talk about previous presidents of the United States, movie stars, all these incredible celebrities, and you work with the man and woman on the street as well.
Right. But they all have the same thing we have, a hand and a history. And this is a history lesson. And so the hand reveals, and a person has in their psyche certain innate abilities. And then some people they're very good at math, or they're very good at whatever it is, it shows up there. So I think that everybody has the chance, I have a quotation that I like, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, you must make a choice to take a chance, or you can't have change. And I think change is what everybody likes. You like it to keep it fresh, to keep doing new things, right?
Absolutely.
So some people have to conquer a whole new world. Other people just keep on the same thing they're doing, but they might expand it.
This is true. Now, I'm going to go on to asking you to please explain what a soulmate specialist is.
Okay, because I do so many people that want to know about soulmates, I name myself a specialist. I'm not the doctor of soulmates. But the thing is, a soulmate to me is reincarnation. It's somebody you knew in a past life. They come into this life as somebody different, but we all carry imprints in our system. So I've only been here one other time. I was a master last time, but the sex changes each time you come back. So last time I was a male master. I don't know what I did then, but it wasn't palmistry. This time I'm the female master of palm reading, since I've done so many thousands of them. So a soulmate means you had business or something with that person in a past life and you didn't get to finish it. And my example would be grandma and grandpa. So maybe last time grandma died in the hospital and grandpa didn't get there in time to say goodbye. This lifetime, it's not grandma and grandpa, but it is, because the person meets whoever they're supposed to meet. They say, I'm so happy I met you. And they're petting the person's hand and they're just thrilled. Grandma found grandpa.
Would you say
that's what a soulmate.
Would you say that about friends? Because when you and I met before this recording, I knew you.
From another lifetime?
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably a kindred soul. See, that means maybe you and I were two little 3-year-old boys in nursery school. At this time, we're who we are. But it's a memory. See, it's the memory bank that gets implanted and people go forward. So average is 4 to 7 of those. So
That's
I'm way
incredible.
on the low end of the continuum at 1, but some people have 60 or 38 or 52, and that's not good. I yell over 20. If somebody's more than 20, I say that's 3 times normal. So I think 21 and above, you should straighten yourself up this time.
Oh, I think so too. It would be very exhausting.
Well, you come back every time to complete something. It's called karmic debt payback.
Oh,
So you know what that is.
That certainly is. It really is, and that is fascinating. If I don't cut off talking about this now, we'll be talking about this until tomorrow, and I won't get to ask you about your books because they are all amazing.
Well,
I'd love to know about the first one was May I See Your Hand?
And that's the one I teach out of. But it's also a person could read it and self-teach. You can teach yourself because I made it so easy. And each page has an illustration on it. So it's like a person could sit down, read that book, and in 1 hour, they know a lot more than they did before. And then you can use it like as a reference or a dictionary. If you get stuck, you can look up something. So that was the first one. That was 1996, and I sent it to 14 publishers, or sent a query letter, and 4 of them wanted it, which is pretty unheard of. Usually, if you're lucky, if you get one. So I went with the company called Woman in the Moon, because I thought that sounded metaphysical. Well, she went out of business. So I have the stock, and it's also on Amazon. Then in 2003, I wrote Soulmate Connections. And the reason I wrote that is because so many people want to know about that. Then in 2004, I went, wait a minute, I read other things besides love and romance. So there's murderers, kidnappers, embezzlers, blackmailers, UFO people, ghosts, all that other stuff, murder. So I wrote the third book called Diary of a Palm Reader. And then when I was done with that one, I didn't do anything for 10 years because I was working the 10-hour days in the house with people coming, calling all the time. So I finally had to do a cutoff and say, you'll have to be in next week, or I'd put people off. So I wrote in 2014, I decided to try a novel. And I wrote Cruise to the Other Side, because every year we go on a cruise and I know the inside out of a cruise ship. And I talked to photographers into taking me to the inner sanctum. It's a part where nobody's allowed to go. And they took me on a cruise ship and showed me the morgue and the jail and the security office, all kinds of things at the hospital. It's all down in the bottom of the ship. So I wrote the story about a mother and a daughter, and the mother falls on the atrium steps, and she's in it's called the medical center, and she's laying there, and there's a deathbed scene, and the daughter comes to see her, and they had just had a fight before. And so they make up, and then the mother passes away. Well, they put her in the morgue, and they zip her up in this big black thing, and she's laying in there, and she isn't ready to leave yet. And so I wrote the story. Wow. There's a psychic in there and a palm reader, and there's almost a plane wreck when they're going to Florida in the first place. It's exciting. It's a page turner.
You say she wasn't ready to leave? And does that mean she haunts the ship?
No, she haunted the daughter.
Oh my goodness.
The daughter would be taking a shower and feel her mother touch her cheek, and she'd go turn around to look, and there's nobody there. When I was writing that, it was creepy.
I was going to say, it's creeping me out now, and you're telling me about it.
Because if you're on a cruise ship, a shower is the size of the smallest closet you ever saw.
Yeah.
And so there's no room for somebody to put their hand in there. Oh. And yet she felt that. And then the mirror gets steamed up, and she has to wipe it off with a towel, and you know how we do. And her mother's face is in there smiling at her. Then she's in an elevator, and the elevator gets stuck, but it's all stainless steel on the walls, and her mother starts visualizing on the wall. Yeah. So when I wrote that, I kept looking behind me.
Oh, I would too. I'm about to start looking behind me now, just speaking about it.
Well, that part was creepy, but there's a psychic on the ship who takes the daughter under her wing and explains to her all about psychic phenomenon. And then it's like a teaching thing, too. So people who aren't initiated into this world would understand it a little more. And then they go to Puerto Rico and different stops along the way. And so there's a palm reader who doesn't speak English. This woman was throwing seashells. It's called something where you throw the shells out, and then they can read how they land. And so the daughter stopped in front of the shop, and the daughter said, instead of the shells, you should come in here and see my grandmother. So she goes into the back of the shop, and the grandmother's a palm reader, but the granddaughter has to interpret everything. And she tells her, go back to the ship. Make up with your mother before it's too late.
Oh my goodness. Okay? Wow.
So I'm trying to have it made into a movie.
Well, I think you should.
It's got enough intrigue and mystery to it that
it sounds like very much like sort of Alfred Hitchcock type thing. Oh wow. Myrna, going back to palm reading, what is the Asiatic or Akashic method of palm reading?
Well, Akashic means past
Akashic.
records or past lives. And so I count the lines on a hand. And you can't see them all, but the ones that I see with the magnifier that stick out are the ones that I talk about. So like somebody might have drowned when they were 3 years old in a bathtub, and I can see that. Or they might have been in the ocean and they got flipped upside down and a wave took them out and they drowned that way. Or they're on a boat and they fall overboard from a canoe or something. And I can see all that in a hand.
That's incredible. So you can see if somebody was perhaps hung as a witch or...
I have never seen a witch, but I've seen people who were a nurse that got killed in World War I. I've seen people, there's just all kinds of things. Native American, Indian. Maybe they got hit by a bow and arrow by their own people because they were on a horse and they got in the way when they were buffalo hunting, and then they get killed that way. So all that is on the hand. Somehow I get it. Or I'll say to somebody, so do you like medical stuff and medicine? They say, yes. How'd you know that? I say, well, in a past life, it shows that you were in a tent during World War I, and all the men and you are the only ones in there. You were taking care of like 50 men, and then a bomb dropped right on you and it killed everybody.
Do they get shocked when you say this, or does it?
No, sometimes they go, I remember that, or you're right. Or other times they go, no way, I wouldn't be a nurse on $1 million. I say, why not? Because I don't like blood. I say, well, maybe you were just the caregiver type, or maybe you were a counselor, something in the medical realm. Yeah.
When you find these things out and you share these discoveries with the people who come to see you, does it somehow help them to understand themselves better?
Usually they walk out of here going, wow, they're completely blown away. Even President Ford. So he said, when he sat down, he said, he had 4 Secret Service men with him. So I said, you better tell them to go across the room. He said, why? And I said, I have a big mouth. They're going to hear this, and I'm going to tell you something only you and I know. So he said, if you don't do that, I'm going to call you a faker. So I said, okay. So I made a little prayer to myself to be really good. So I look in his hand and I go, oh, when you were 19, you did this, this, and this. And he goes, Betty Ford doesn't even know that. So that was his wife. So he jumped up and he goes, I'm a believer. And the Secret Service ran across that room. They were on me like you wouldn't believe it. They thought I heard him. He was just jumping up and down because I got him.
Oh, that's incredible. What a lovely story. Oh, you have such fabulous stories. I'm going to have to get you back again. Myrna-Lou, you just, oh, wow.
Well, did that hour fly by?
It did. It's been flying so fast. And I'm going to have to ask you now how people can get in touch with you, because everybody who is listening to this, you have to book some time with this wonderful woman. She's incredible.
At half price, it's really a bargain, because it takes me an hour and a half to do one reading, and it's about 5 or 6 pages typed. So how they would get in touch with me is my email is palmist, PALMIST at Myrna-Lou, and it's spelled MYRNALOU.com. So that's how they would email me. And I use PayPal. They go that way. If they want to look up my website, it's www.myrnalou.com. So that's MYRNALOU.com. I was named for a movie star. That's where my name comes from.
Tell me about the movie star before I say goodbye to you.
Okay. When I was born, my mother... Our religion you name for people who passed away. So I had an Uncle Mike and an Uncle Louis. So they needed an M and an L. And I turned out they thought I was going to be Michael Lewis, named for the uncles. Well, it was a girl, and my mother went, oh my God, we don't have a name. And those years they stayed in the hospital 10 days. So she was in there over a week. And my aunt came and sat next to her reading a magazine. It was an old movie magazine. And she goes, oh, look, Myrna-Lou, she was a movie star. Let's name your daughter Myrna-Lou. And that's how I got that name.
All your stories are fabulous. When are you going to write a biography?
Well, right now I'm writing the 5th book about a cruise and a kidnapping of a 2-month-old baby by the nanny. So I'm in the middle of the 5th book, and then I probably will write an autobiography.
You definitely must, because just the couple of stories that you've shared with me and the listeners here, even about Mr. Superstar Ford and his poor wife Betty. I wonder what she did when.
Well, he said I had to tell him something only we both knew, and so I did it. But I've done other people that are famous too, and so you would have heard of them.
I am sure. Are you allowed to name drop, or would we keep that confidential?
I did Phil Donahue, who was the first TV talk show host in America.
Yes.
And I told him he would be, and when he was 17 and I was 16. And so that was in high school.
Yeah.
Then I did Irma Bombeck because I worked in a newspaper in Dayton, Ohio, and she did too. And I was setting type on a machine for her, and she would write 3 articles a week. And then she would proofread them, and she couldn't find any mistakes because I did them perfectly. So I did Irma Bombeck, Phil Donahue. I did Ivana Trump before she was divorced from Donald Trump, who's now our president.
Yes.
I did Sly Stallone, Clint Eastwood. There's people you've heard of.
Yes, certainly. And they're all people I really think are amazing. Ivana, I loved it. Don't get mad, darling. Get even. That's a quote she caught out there. And I thought, good girl.
I told her, I said, there's going to be trouble in River City, which is my code for a divorce is coming.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh no, the Donald and me are tight. We're just like this. And she holds up 2 fingers, and they got divorced, of course.
Yeah, without a doubt, of course. That's intriguing. You do have to, I have to ask you, please, you do have to write that biography.
Well, thank you for the cheerleading.
Well, you deserve it. You're incredible. Thank you so much, Myrna-Lou, for being here with us on Awaken Your Mind Magic. You've made my day.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I had fun. And that's the whole idea. I wouldn't still do it if I didn't enjoy it, and I love this. So
I totally agree with you. Life is for fun, and that's what Universal Spirit, God, whatever you want to call this incredible force, loves. We must have life that is full of joy and adventure. And you certainly have.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Myrna-Lou.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me.
Silver on the on the inside, silver on the outside, gold on the inside, silver on the outside.
Tune in next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.